This week we are adding to our apple theme with a porch sign. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. Alright, so we're starting off with one of these ginormous craft sticks from Walmart and a dollar store craft stick. And I cut mine into these pieces. Cut the jumbo gigantic one into a piece slightly more than 5 inches, mainly because I mismeasured. And then I cut the regular size craft stick into 3 chunks that will go across the back. And that is to help hopefully prevent the issue we had last time we made a porch sign out of one of these ginormous craft sticks, in that it warped really, really badly, even though I did everything I normally do. So we are going to attempt to prevent that. But before we go into that, I want to talk a little bit about safety. Now, to cut the regular craft stick, I used my Easy Cutter, which, if you guys have watched my videos for any length of time, you know how much I love this tool. It's one of my favorite tools that I reach for all the time. But I don't think it's safe to cut these because these are harder to cut. And I see a lot of people using these angle cutters on YouTube videos in what I consider to be very unsafe ways to cut things that are just not safe to cut it with. For this piece, I used my little X-Acto miter box and saw. Now I've got videos reviewing both of these tools, and I'm going to try to remember to link both of them in iCards up at the corner of the video. So if you're not familiar with those tools, you can go and look at them at that. But just remember that not everyone on YouTube is looking out for your safety. And when you see someone cutting something with a tool that looks like it's struggling, it's probably not safe, and please don't do that. Go use a tool that's safe to use. Okay, off my soapbox. Let's go ahead and get this prepped. So I'm going to grab a handful of these clamps. I got you guys backed up so you can see the whole piece here. What we are going to do is we're going to use some nice strong tacky glue. And this is one of those spots where you're going to want a really good strong glue. You don't want to be cheating and using, especially not hot glue, on something like this, because that won't hold. I almost pulled out my construction adhesive because I'm pretty sure that would hold better than tacky glue even, but I know that not everyone has access to it. So we're going to stick with this. If this works, we'll continue with this. If not, I'll show you a method using a different glue next time. All right, now I've got these in place. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be, I just want 3 of them. They don't have to be perfectly spaced or anything. Now, and make sure that though that they are not showing past the edges. Clamp them. And I got the big clamps for the ends, and these clamps came from Dollar Tree. You get a package depending on the size. I don't remember, I think it was 2 of the big ones and maybe 6 of the little ones. All right, and now this glue, to stay a really strong hold, needs to dry completely. So I'm going to set this to the side and get it dry. When it's dry, we'll come back and we'll start decorating. All right, our glue is dry and this feels very secure, so hopefully it will stay this way. So we are going to do a base coat of any brown. I have some burnt umber from Liquitex Basics. I really need to get to the store and buy myself some more brown paint. Do I have a... No. This one is really, really thick. And it doesn't need to be a super even coat of this. This is our base that we are going to well, for the most part, we're only going to reveal a little bit. We will be possibly using some more of this later. I do want to get the sides. off camera. I think I will do the back, but that way it will help also to minimize any warping and kind of finish it off. So I'm going to paint the back off camera, clean my brush, and when this paint's dry, we can go in with our next coat of paint. All right, my brown paint is fairly dry. It may still be damp in a few spots, but I think it's fine to go on. It's not wet enough it's going to smear it all. So I've got some apple barrel in white that Plaid sent me, and one of the lovely brushes they sent me, and I put some of the paint off in this container. I did this because it's easy to get to, but also it prevents, if there would be any wet paint here, I'd pick up with my brush. I wouldn't transfer it into my paint that's in my jar. I very seldom work with product directly out of the jar. Whether it's paint or Mod Podge or whatever, I prefer to waste a little bit by putting it out on a surface over taking the chance of getting a little bit of something that maybe wasn't dry into it. Now this, I am going to make a fairly even coat, but not too heavy. We are going to be aging this. And I'm not going to paint the edges of this because we are going to do something different with the edges later after we're all done. All right. So I don't want a completely even coat because, like I said, we're going to age this. So we're going to, but I want a little more, and I've got a little more paint out. So if a little white gets on the edges, that's fine, but I'm not going to bother painting them. All right, now this needs to dry. When this is dry, I'll come back and we'll start adding our we'll start aging it and then adding some decoration. All right, so my paint is dry, and I've already started a little bit. I'm doing a little bit of aging with just some 320 grit sandpaper. I get a little bit more down here. I'm not worrying about the edges at this point because we're going to do something different with the edges later. So let me get set up and we will put some letters on here. All right, so I've got my ruler and I am going to measure. Now this is just a hair over an inch wide. So I am going to line my ruler up so I'm as close to the center as I can be and draw a line with a pencil. And then I'm going to draw a line as close to the center again as I can. Now I want to get, I'm going to make myself a little space here. Make that way. If I start this one here, it's going to be too big. Trying to plot out how big I want to make my letters. I make my W here. I make my C about here. Kind of eyeball this. Okay, we will see how this looks. So if I make a W, and I'm going to put my letters in with a pencil first. That way, if I need to, I can erase it and I can start over. I'm going to put the O here, but I'm not actually going to write the O. I decided to hand letter this time rather than using the Cricut. This would look really good if you had letter stickers too. All right, am I happy with those? I'm happy with the basic placement. So now I have my black paint pen. I think I picked this up at Walmart, I believe. shift these letters up just the tiniest bit. And I can erase any marks, pencil marks later that I need to. And like a lot of times, we're going to skip the O and we're going to come back and paint something else there. I'm going to let this paint dry, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to add some little flourishes to those letters. So I will be back when this paint dries. All right, that paint's had some time to dry, so now I'm going to kind of make my letters look a little more and you can fiddle with yours however much you want. Worst case scenario, you paint over it with white paint. If you really hate what you've done, and I've done that in the past. All right, we're going to let this dry all the way. And when, oops, see if I can even that up. When this is completely dry, I'm going to come back. We're going to erase the pencil lines and we'll start adding our apple in the middle. All right, this is dried. I wanted the lettering to dry overnight before this next step. And I may still fiddle with my letters off camera, but right now this is where it's at. So I've got an eraser. I wanted that black paint to dry overnight because I didn't want any chance of smearing it. And by having it dry overnight, I know it's not going to smear when I do this. All right, now I am going to kind of draw myself hopefully this will look like an apple and not a pumpkin. Those, I have a brush and I have the apple red that we've been using on the front porch apple decor items. If I start coughing, don't be concerned, it's allergies. We have an extremely high pollen count today, but I need to get filming because I need to get this edited and uploaded. So it's made kind of a round shape with a little flat on the bottom, a little kind of a divot-like thing on the top. I'm not a painter. I'm not an artist. That's not my forte, but I can make simple shapes look like stuff. And that's really all we're doing here. So I'm going to let that dry. When that's dry, I'll come back, we'll add a stem, and we'll add a leaf to our apple, and then we can add some trim to it. All right, so our paint on our apple is dry, and I dug out my Liquitex Basics in Burnt Umber again. It's the same paint we used as our base. And I've put some out here. It looks rather disgusting when you think about it, but I'm going to use that for two things. I'm going to use it for a stem. So I've got a really tiny brush for that. And I want to get just the littlest. I think I need to give my brush a haircut pretty soon. All right, I'm going to put that off to the side, and then I have another brush, And I have a piece of 1/8 by 1/8 inch basswood. And I'm going to take this same brown paint and I'm going to give this a nice coat of this brown paint. This paint is really thick, so I'll probably have to turn the camera off and kind of work on this off camera. But I want to get a good base coat of this on this strip. And this is going to be used to frame our sign this time. I thought I'd do something a little different, kind of based on a couple of them I saw online. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to get this painted. And then when the paint is dry, I will come back. We will cut it. We will probably go ahead and paint our leaf before we put this on. But I want the paint for the stem to dry first. We'll get the leaf painted, we'll get the frame made, and we'll get moving on this sign. All right, the brown paint has dried, and we are going to go ahead and add our leaf before we frame this because it'll be easier to do our painting in here if we do it now. So I've got my green. This is the bright green multi-surface from Folk Art that Plaid sent me. All the paints today except the paint pen and the brown were sent by Plaid, as were all the brushes and the Mod Podge when we get to that. So I have just a liner brush in a size 1, and I'm going to try not to get my head in the screen, but I want to add just a couple of something that will look like a leaf. I think I'm just going to add one because my stem is a little close to the apple on that side. So that needs to dry. When that gets dry, it'll just take a few minutes. When that gets dry, we will start adding our frame, touching up the paint, and then doing some aging to that. So I'll be right back. All right, our green paint has dried, and I have off camera went ahead and cut 2 pieces to the length to fit the long edges. And they're slightly long, and that's fine. I'd rather have them slightly long than too short. That gives me 2 options. I can either just frame this a little bit bigger, or I can sand it even with the ends. And I think I'm just going to frame it just a slight bit bigger, lining it up at the bottom. So I've got my dollar store clamps. These, if you don't have a set of these, I do recommend getting them in otherwise use like clothespins or something. You do want to clamp this because you don't want it to go anywhere. So pick the side that you want to put the glue on. I've got tacky glue over here. I'm using a toothpick. I'm going to try and be as neat as possible and still cover the entire back side of this piece of wood. Wiping any excess. And try to keep any excess to the outside where it's easier to wipe. I'm going to line this up. Don't worry about the cut in not having paint on it because we're going to go back and paint the sides. Line that up. Line it up really well so that it's lined up with the bottom edge and it's got a nice flat fit there. And I'm going to clamp. There. Now let's do the other side. Same way. We are going to age this once the glue is dry. And we've done some more painting. We're going to add more paint and then take off paint. All right, now line this one up also. And off camera, I will be double checking that everything is lined up. It's hard for me to get everything lined up on camera because ideally my head would be, you know, like right here so that I could be looking directly down at the project. That's why for you in your craft room, at your craft table, it's going to be a little easier than it is for me on camera, but that's okay. All right, those need to dry because I want those dry before I try to fit the end pieces in. So I'm going to be back when this is dry. All right, I took the clamps off, so now that glue is completely dry, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want to take any chance on moving these, trying to get this on. And I'm going to mark this, but I'm going to cut it a little long. I'd rather cut it down a couple of times than accidentally just pass that line. And it's a little long, and that's what I wanted. I've got my sandpaper here. And I'm going to work with it until I get it exactly where I want it. Just a little bit more. Okay, change to a coarser sandpaper. That'll work faster. So I don't want to go down too far. I want it there. Perfect. So now, line these up. Make sure that's held completely together. And now I'm going to put some glue on and clamp this, and I hear the lawnmower getting closer and closer out there. Oh, he's going the other way now. Now on this one, I want to make sure that I get this lined up. And this one's going to overhang a little bit, and I'm fine with that. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put 2 clamps on. Put some glue on the back side of this one. And that's the same glue I had out earlier. I just put a plastic container upside down over it so that it stayed nice and moist. This in. Oop. Oh, that one's okay. So my sticks are not on straight. That's okay. I've got a little more. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one cut, and then I'll get it glued in because the lawnmower is coming closer again. And when this is dry, I'll come back and we'll go to the next step. All right, so that end is a little wider because it slipped just a little bit and I didn't notice, but that's okay. It's fine. It's not going to make that big of a difference. You can make yours a little more even. So I wrapped up my brown paint earlier, and we are going to take our edges and we're going to hit all these edges. Hopefully I can get this step all done before the dude on the lawnmower comes back. So I am going to continue all the way around the perimeter of the sign, catching the white paint that came over from the front and the spots on the ends that didn't get coated where we cut the wood. And then I'm going to let this paint dry, and when this is dry I'll come back and we will do a little bit of aging. So I'll be right back. All right, I'm kind of running out of time, so I need to go. So hopefully this paint is dry enough that I want to do a little aging. I just want to hit the edges. I've got 320 grit sandpaper again. Told you we were going to add paint and then take some of it off. I actually want to there we go. I'm not going to go overboard on it. I just want to get just some of the really hard edges sanded just a bit so that it doesn't look too harsh. So it looks like it's been around a while. So there we go. And now let's give it a coat of matte Mod Podge, compliments of the people at Plaid. I am going to squirt some of this into this little container because I don't want to contaminate it with any paint that might still be wet. By giving it a coat of Mod Podge, we'll seal it. We'll make it look a lot more finished. and it just makes it look a little more like you know what you're doing when you do these. So I am going to put the coat of Mod Podge on the whole, all the surfaces that are going to show. I'll probably go back at a later time and Mod Podge the back, but it's not necessary. I do want to get the front and the sides and all around this frame. Paint is still a little wet, but that's okay. So I'm going to finish painting this and Mod Podging this, and when the Mod Podge is dry, I will come back and we'll take a look at this in place on the front porch of the dollhouse. All right, there's our porch sign in place next to the front door with our fun porch floor and our doormat from last week. I really love the apple theme for this time of year. If you make one of these, be sure and share a picture with me. I'd love to see it in place on your dollhouse. If you would like to see other themes or other items made, be sure and leave me a comment. Let me know what you want to see. If you like the video, hit the like button. Be sure and go over and visit the blog post. There's lots more information and photos over there. If you enjoyed my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you. Hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up my next video. Thank you very much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.